Greetings all, this is Hairy Nick, and these guys are the winner of the 2018 Western Australia Regional Championships for X-Wing. Well, not these ones, they belong to the guy that actually won the tournament. Still very much a real thing. It is, however, worth mentioning that this tournament was played a day before the newest FAQ was revealed and implemented, meaning that this list actually included the interaction between Genius and the Trajectory Simulator. And the question remains, is Miranda and Nim with this combination still going to be viable going forward? I think it is, but we'll see how that turns out. But for the time being, let's talk about that list and the 7 other lists that made the top 8 of the Western Australia Regionals for X-Wing. And before I dive into these, I want to give a quick shout out to the X-Wing List Juggler website. This is the place where I get all the information for these meta videos, so if you're interested in this kind of stuff and you want to see what's going on, go and check out the website. It's thoroughly awesome. First of all, the faction breakdown for these top 8 lists is there was 1 Scum list, 2 Imperial, and 5 Rebel. Given the continued dominance of lists like Miranda, Nim, and basically anything that uses Lorik, I'm not surprised to see this. We had in this tournament 24 ships total, 22 of them being small. This is mainly because there are a lot of small ship squads that used a large amount of ships in this tournament. Pure and simple. The last wave gave us 5 new ships, and the one ship out of that wave that basically is not seeing play was the one big ship from that wave. Things like the Alpha Class Star Wing, the TIE Silencer, even the Phantom and the Kimagila to some extent is seeing a bit of tournament play, so the small ships are just dominating the meta right now. The overall squad sizes favoured the 3 of builds with a total of 4 lists. There were 2 of both 2 ships and 4 ships, but as you can see, we're shifting more towards these higher amount of ships in each list. Towards the end of last year, we're actually seeing a lot of 2 of lists, so this is actually a pretty big shift. And I think the main reason we're seeing this is possibly because of the Alpha Class Star Wing. It's just a really good, efficient ship that sits in the mid-20s, so it's never going to go in like a 2 of list. It's just, that mathematically doesn't make any sense, so 3 ofs and 4 ofs are going to make a lot of sense heading forward if this ship does indeed continue to dominate in the meta the way it has been. And just speaking of the Star Wing, it was indeed the ship that was used the most in these lists with a 5 of. Second being with Miranda as a 4 of in the K-Wing. Then going down to 3 Oz attacks with Lorik. And when we get below the 3 of, we actually have some interesting results here. We have 2 Skik fighters, 2 Phantom 2s, and 2 YT-2400s, all with different pilots as well, which is just really cool. In the 1-ofs, we have Arc 170s, Protectorate Starfighters, a Star Viper, a Kylo Ren in his TIE Silencer, a Quick Draw in a TIE SF, and a Captain Nim on the Rebel faction in the Skirk H6. So we had some pretty spicy brews in this top 8, and I just want to have a look at a few of them before we get onto the winner. This is the list by Vlad Piskatek. And this is interesting because it's kind of a variation in the list that took the Brisbane Regionals, in that we have Kylo Ren with Push the Limits Advanced Sensors, but Vlad here has actually opted to take the Prime Thrusters approach over Advanced Optics, which is cool. I think Prime Thrusters is the better synergized upgrade, but Advanced Optics is often taken simply because it's very high value. Prime Thrusters, of course, means that you can use push limits on one turn, and during the start of your next turn, you can still boost or barrel roll with advanced sensors, even though you are stressed, because Prime Thrusters, of course, allows that. But what's really spicy about this list is the build we have on the Alpha Class Star Wings. These aren't Harpoon missiles, which is basically the default build people seem to be going for. This uses heavy laser cannon. And it's interesting because we have the XG1 Assault configuration, which grants the Star Wing the cannon slots. It also gives it the ability to fire with a cannon that costs 2 or fewer squad points if it has a weapons disable token. And that part of the card is basically getting no value in this build. Heavy laser cannon obviously costs 7 points, cannot be used in those scenarios. It's really cool. So basically what this is saying is there's a very high chance that it's viable to take this title even though you're not getting the full value out of it. I guess at the end of the day it does only cost 1 point, and an 8-point heavy laser cannon, which is essentially what this is resulting in, isn't terrible. They've both got 26 points, so you can't do this build as a 4 of, but it's something to keep an eye on nonetheless. Long range scanners just gives you a bit of extra value. You can take the target lock at the start of the game and then use them when you fly into range, and then basically use that slam from then on out. And overall, I just like this. It's a bit of a fun version of the list that we saw take the Queensland Regionals. And we also had this list by Dale Neville, and this is really cool because it includes the pilot Eden Vril. And I'm going to be honest, I had to look this up because I've never seen this pilot used before. But he's very interesting. He's a 32-point cost pilot on the YT-2400. When performing a primary weapon attack against a stress ship, roll 1 additional attack die. That seems all right. I guess if you can get that turned on all the time, it basically has Falcon-like stats on this ship. You're fighting 360 with 3 red dice. Sure, it doesn't have as much health, but it has 2 green dice, and that goes a long way to negate that. Recon Specialist on this ship makes a whole heap of sense if you're always unlocking those 3 red dice. You have enough dice thrown to make sure that you are going to get value out of 2 focus tokens. And of course we have a build with Lorik and Braylon Stram, and both of those can just sink a lot of stress in. Braylon Stram is a great stress bot with the R3A2 because he is able to strip his own stress tokens quite efficiently, meaning he can use R3A2 and still do wipe maneuvers and still use this ability turn after turn after turn. What's also interesting about this is the inclusion of Baze Malbus, a card which I think is basically terrible 90% of the time, but pretty legit in this list. Because you basically need a budget way of getting Gunner on this list. I see what's going on there because you want to get 2 activations off R3A2. But Baze Malbus means you can take a shot against 2 different ships and lock down 2 different ships with R3A2, which is just fantastic. Because the arc has a forward and a rear firing arc, there's a good chance that Baze Malbus will proc and you will get 2 guys in your firing arcs. Maybe one at the front, maybe one at the back, maybe both at the front. Who knows? You have options, and that makes this card a bit stronger than it usually is. And Lorik, look, Lorik is Lorik. We know what Lorik does. Predator Ray, yep, great. That's a very good offensive build. You're going to have focus tokens and rerolls to use in your attacks. And Tactician is such a strong card in the other attack because that range 2 band on the 180-degree arc is just so big. It gives it a nice bit of light stress control, which is just going to help Eden Vril even further. And Lorik is just going to be a solid include, keeping your other ships alive and doing a decent amount of damage himself. And I like this build so much. It's spicy, it's interesting. I'm really happy to see something with a pilot I've never even heard of make the top 8 of a regionals. I'm really keen to keep an eye out for this and see if it appears anywhere else, because it's just a really cool, fun, interesting list. But yes, here it is, the winner, Barry Early or Early. Sorry, Barry, if you're watching this, I actually don't know how to pronounce your name. I do apologize for that. But yes, Miranda Nim, we know what's going on here. It's stupid powerful. It's amazing. I honestly look at this list, I look at what happened with the FAQ, and I wouldn't change the way this is actually built out. I would legitimately still fly Captain Nim here with Genius and Treachery Simulator, even though the combination of using them within the same turn together can't be done anymore. You still have the 3 different options in you can drop a bomb regularly after you move or with the Trajectory Simulator before you move. And that's still great. It's still a lot of value for 1 point across those 2 upgrades. And yeah, there's not much to say. I really love this list. I talked about something similar before when Paul Heaver took the US Nationals last year. Used a similar kind of variation on this list. I will say that this uses Sabine on Miranda, which is actually my preferred way of doing it. And it also has the include of Harpoon missiles and extra munitions, because of course those ships can take this as well. It's big, it's disgusting. With the addition of Harpoon missiles, this list is absolutely legitimate, and even with the FAQ, I still think this is going to do well in major tournaments. In fact, I'm even going to bet right now that it's going to take at least 1 more nationals during this season. It is just insanely efficient. Anyway, guys, that is the breakdown of the top 8 list in the WA Regionals for 2018 for the game of X-Wing. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned. In the coming weeks, we'll have some more Australian regionals to talk about. But in the meantime, like and subscribe, like the Facebook page and the Twitter, and I will catch you later.